Okay, a couple more comments about the Unicender and strumming the Unicender. I use an ABR tether, which I really like because it's adjustable. But beyond that, I've come to realize that there's several different ways in which to attach to the bottom of the Unicender. In this case, I've attached the ABR tether with a girth hitch, but I've done it in such a manner that it pushes the L bracket as high as possible, so that when I put it in the position for the strumming, I get practically no movement at all. The other configuration with a girth hitch, but notice it doesn't have a tendency to lift the L bracket as much as the other girth hitch. It descends a little easier, and it drops quite a bit more, making that transition a little more difficult. And all I've done is change the position of the girth hitch, and I can still strum it and get very little drop. But without strumming it, I'll get a substantial drop. Now, in my opinion, this would be the least desirable, would not be good, the least desirable position in which to girth hitch that, as you've created the greatest gap between the L bracket and that bottom link. And as you can see, letting go, I'm almost not able, there we go, I'm almost not able to get it to take. Now in the same configuration, we'll try strumming it, and even strumming gets a more significant drop. This is a configuration with just a straight carabiner. Alright, that was a lot of slip. I don't climb with just a carabiner on there, but did not like that. And it probably sounds like I'm selling that ABR tether. I have no affiliation with it. The company, I think it's a great tether, and after using this carabiner, I like that tether even more. We'll try it one more time. There we go. Okay, that works, but yes, still. All right, I've turned it back to my favorable configuration, and now I want to see if the weight changes. It does feel like, and it appears to take a little less weight. I'm looking at 5 right there. Alright, I'm curious to know how much, with a brand new Unicender and this kern mantle, how much friction I have to apply to hold myself. Right now, I'm looking at about 10 kilograms. Around 10 kilograms. Okay, now I am strumming and drumming. And this is the drum. This is a pretty worn Unicender. I've had it for some time. It will strum it. It works pretty well with the drum attached. I can tell the difference between it and a new one, but it still works pretty well for the transition to descent. But what I really like about this is that I can easily lock it off, and I can stop at a workstation without having to come out of the advanced descend mode. It's easy to take it back out, descend a little bit, lock it off, do my work, descend a little more, lock it off. There's another view of the drum, and I'll explain it a little better later when I take it off the rope. But that's the configuration. I have a wear plate attached here that prevents any wear from getting on the Unicender. This is simply put on with epoxy. It can be taken off. And the drum can be put on with epoxy. I've attached it with a couple of small rivets. You could put a set screw in there if you wanted. And because it's put in that bottom plate, away from any of the linkage, it could not have any effect with the strength or my liability in using the Unicender. Let me explain my drum a little more. And like I said, I've put with epoxy. There's an aluminum piece that's fit, that is shaped so that it fits on the L of the bottom bracket of the Unicender. That way when the rope comes by, there's no wear actually on my Unicender. That'll wear for a long time, but eventually it would be a very inexpensive piece to replace. The rope comes, normally you'll get friction at this point, and that will wear. The way my drum is designed is that when I put it on, before I attach it, I can move it very close to that wear point so that the drum takes the wear and the Unicender doesn't take any wear. When I bring the rope up and over the top, the rope is running through the drum and up and over and through, and again the drum absorbs the heat, and it also takes all of the wear. Now when the Unicender is squeezed together, that rope is just running through the Unicender, so you have very little friction. And as long as you can keep your Unicender squeezed together, you're not going to have very much wear on those links, which is where your expense is on the Unicender, and replacing and having it rebuilt, because those wear out. So when it's squeezed together like this, you're just running up and down on the rope, and very little wear. So when you bring it up over the drum takes all the wear. Now, to keep from having to go from the advanced descend mode and back and forth and all of that, it's very easy with this. You bring it up, over, and it locks. It goes through that joint, and when it pulls down, you get friction right there, and it locks. You never even have to come out of the descent mode. When you're ready to go back down, you just loop it over and you're ready to descend again. Bring it back up over the top, lock it down, and I'm hoping that we're seeing this, but and I'll demonstrate that a couple more times going up the rope. But that's how that works. It locks off, and you still have with the drum, you still have your attachment point when you want to use a doubled rope. So it doesn't occupy that attachment point. So one of my concerns when I did this was in lessening the friction, how much, or in lessening the wear, how did I affect the friction? And so I've got this set to 0, and I'll see how much it takes to keep me in place. And there's 11.4, 9, 13, going down a little bit. There's 14. So it appears that I went from about 8 to 10 to maybe 10 to 12 to 14 kilograms in how much force I have to apply to maintain the friction. Certainly within acceptable standards for me. But alright, I'll just mention this now. I think I'm probably selling this ABS tether more than I am my drum. But what I really like about that tether is that I can let the length come up, and then I use my Unicender basically as a hand ascender with a foot loop. And when I'm done, when I've ascended, it's so easy just to tighten that up, and you can even just stand up and do it. You don't even have to be on a limb, but you just stand up and shorten that, and it brings my Unicender in front of me a little closer, and works a lot better for work positioning and all of those things. I have a bungee cord on here to just keep some of the slack, and I also have a corner trap that I've backed up with a little bit of tape, and that keeps the carabiner oriented so that it never gets sideways on my anchor. But that's just me. Anyway, we'll go up and play with this for a bit. Okay, there I've put the pulley on the L bracket. Pulley wasn't my idea, but I like the pulley, and all I had to do was take and file that down just a little bit to put a sheave on there. But a little limb walk and 3-to-1 mechanical advantage for getting back when your SRT, seems to me that you just want to be able to, on a skinny limb like this, it really helps to be able to pull the rope to pull yourself back rather than stand on the limb and feed it in. But that works pretty good. It's not as smooth as the hitchhiker with a shackle, but I think you can see that works pretty well. Of course, I got up here and forgot something, so we'll make a quick descent. But when I'm here, there is the drum locked off. What I'm gonna do, so we're going down. I want to do a little work here. Lock that off. Not right now. We'll get the rope where I want it. Continue the descent. That was graceful. I just really like this ABR tether because it's so easy to adjust. You got a little redirect there, it shortens that up for working, but for ascending, if you're used to ascending on a doubled rope, it just makes it real easy. I'm using a foot ascender, but it keeps everything out of the way of your hands, just like that, just like the floating crucible. And then when I get to the top, it's really easy to take up the slack. And I weigh 200 pounds, maybe a little more with my climbing gear on. And I find with the drum, I can descend quite well doubled rope with the Unicender. Whereas if I try to do that without the drum on the normal friction, it seems to bind up a bit. And just like SRT, if I want to stop, I don't have to take it out of the descend mode. I can stay in the descend mode. I can do my work, and then I can go back to descent. Lock it off, do my work, descend. Alright, so there's the drum. There's on a single line using the ABR tether. Again, when the Unicender is squeezed together, it's simply running the rope. Has very little friction, thus very little wear. So the more time you can keep that Unicender squeezed together, the longer it's going to last. And with this drum, this piece takes the wear and the drum takes the wear, and being that it's squeezed together, you get very little wear on the plates of the Unicender, and the second, the doubled rope attachment point is still available for attachment. So when you pull up over the top for your advanced descent mode, you can descend that way, and when you want to stop, because of the design on the top where that drum meets the rope, you can bring that up over the top and it'll lock it on. You do your work. You never came out of the squeeze mode. When you're ready to come down, there you go. Alright, so we're going to do a descent. Again, at this tie-in point, I'm about 60 feet. So we'll do a descent to the ground from 60 feet.